Hey everybody. So today I was going to kind of put together a lot of the things I've been talking about in my prior videos. So if you're anybody with trauma history or PTSD, you might find this video helpful. We're going to talk about senses and triggers and how that sets off everything that occurs afterwards. So we experience senses obviously through any of our senses: sight, smell, touch, hearing, taste, so on and so forth. It comes up through our central nervous system. We process it in our brainstem, and this is where it goes to the thalamus. The thalamus is basically the sensory relay system, and it is here in the thalamus that it either decides, based on the sensory information that's coming in through our body, whether to send that information to our neocortex up here, which is our higher thinking and processing, and ideally where we would want to be in an ideal world, right? However, sometimes that sensory information comes into our thalamus and it reaches here based on the reticular activating system, which is basically your gatekeeper. It decides whether to send this information to the hypothalamus, which basically is the endocrine system and releases all the hormones, or again to the neocortex. Now, anybody with a lot of trauma and PTSD and things like that, or different triggers from different senses and different things like that, you got to figure a lot of what's within your reticular activating system. If you watch some of my prior videos, you understand that basically it says that what we look for, we find, right? So, and that's basically, if you look for good, you find good. If you look for bad, you find bad. However, there are some things that are deep into our subconscious mind that is then going to direct how we react. And sometimes with people with PTSD or a lot of trauma, that doesn't match the actual reality and what's occurring. So that's why it's super important to address, right? Well, that reticular activating system is basically always scanning for threats, right? So somebody who's been in a heightened under a heightened stress, or maybe combat veterans and things like that, who was, didn't sleep for days or was away for long periods of time at war and things like that, or even victims or childhood victims that went through a lot of trauma, you are even more likely to always be scanning for these threats, right, using the reticular activating system. So we're trying to figure out, is there threats? In a normal person who doesn't have PTSD and things like that, their whole system is calm. They take that up, the senses up to their brainstem. They send it to their neocortex and their prefrontal cortex, and they, decode the information based on the senses, and they determine an outcome or a behavior, right? Well, somebody with a lot of trauma, again, that senses come up through our brainstem to our thalamus, and sometimes if a certain trigger, a sound, or a smell, anything like that could set off a trigger and an automatic response. Because remember now, any kind of memory or an event that has a strong emotion attached to it then sends that memory into our subconscious mind. And again, so a lot of times those automatic responses are going to be there, because then again, as we learned from my video the other day, 95% of our behaviors and thoughts are from our subconscious mind, right? So we got to think, this information in the reticular activating system that comes up in a person with a lot of trauma, it's constantly scanning everywhere for threats and to determine if they're safe or not, right? Well, it is here within the reticular activating system that can actually alter levels of consciousness. So based on the sensory input that comes up in through our brainstem and our central nervous system into our brainstem and then into our thalamus, if we're being triggered due to past trauma, that's going to automatically view that as a threat. So instead of your neurons going to your neocortex and your prefrontal cortex, they're going to go straight to your hypothalamus. Then it's going to produce all of those chemicals that are going to help you be more alert and prepare for either fight, flight, fawn, whatever that, whatever your typical reaction is, right? Well, here within the reticular activating system, which is, again, basically that gatekeeper to determine, is there a threat? your reticular activating system is going to then again be able to alter those levels of consciousness, which if you watch my video from a few days ago on brain waves, you understand that beta brain waves are basically the most heightened alert you can have. It is what our brain goes into, or our consciousness goes into when we are faced with danger, right? Because we are preparing, we have to be heightened alert, agile, prepared, all of that. It is in those times that we are most open to suggestion and imprints on our memories as well too. Because again, it's that whole emotion cement memories kind of thing, right? So when we think about, again, all of this information coming up through our brain, our central nervous system, to our brainstem, to our thalamus, again, those people with a lot of trauma, are triggered, or who are being triggered. That information is not coming to their, higher functioning parts of their brains. It's going back to the amygdala. To the thalamus, and then to the amygdala that prepares for fight or flight. Again, in this amygdala, when the information goes to the amygdala is basically the animal part of our brain. So this is the part of our brain that is going to know how to react automatically without thought, right? So this is also the part of the brain where our subconscious is imprinted on our brain, and which leads a lot of our behaviors. So when we think about this, and people with a lot of trauma, and especially combat veterans and things like that, it's very, very important to realize that, those triggers, as soon as those triggers come in, this is, why it's easy to understand why, it's easy to be more impulsive, not thinking things through, out of touch with reality. Judgment goes out the window during these times because, again, you're on automatic. You're not even going to your prefrontal cortex. That information is just going straight to the amygdala, which is preparing for fight or flight, which is, again, heightened concentration, heightened alertness. However, the least amount of logical reasoning and thinking, those types of things. So it's important to be able to realize that, right? So with that being said, again, being triggered leads to, the amygdala, and the amygdala then is going to put you in that beta brainwave state, which is then going to produce your, levels of consciousness, which then is going to produce those physiological reactions in your body, such as, cortisol, adrenaline, or maybe it's even pleasure. Let's say this. So either which way, whether it is fight, flight, or pleasure, all three of those are kind of one and the same, in the sense that all logic goes out the window and you're kind of just focused on that one thing, right? So they can kind of all be useful. It's kind of one of those things where they can be a hindrance, but if you learn how to work with it, you can also, learn how to use it to your advantage as well. So with that being said, if you're somebody, or you love somebody, or know somebody with a lot of trauma in their histories, you got to realize, based on Hobbes' theory, neurons that wire together fire together, right? So the more times somebody's in a stressful situation, or maybe in a combat war zone and things like that, that is more likely that their brains are going to operate in that way, right? Anybody with PTSD, pretty much. So let's think about it. What could we do about this, right? So anybody with PTSD or a lot of trauma, it's very, very important that you are able to feel in a safe environment and comfortable environment. Be able to have healthy self-help and coping mechanisms. So whether that is, I like to journal and write and do these videos and, work out and do things outside, whatever that is for you, arts, crafts, gaming, have those activities that you get to enjoy. Try to eliminate stress out of your life. If you have unhealthy relationships and people in your life that are adding stress in your life, that's probably, not what you need. Thinking about how to release what's out of your control. If you don't have any control of it, why sit and worry about it? I know it's easier said than done, but it with practice, you know, you can get over that. Again, that's the whole reticular activating system, right? What you look for, you're going to find. And that's based on neuroscience and, you know, the whole Hobbes theory, right? The neurons that fire together wire together. So cognitive behavioral therapy, you know, being able to reframe situations, you know, being able to get out of an automatic response, you know, so that can be done with all the different therapies I just mentioned, you know, with cognitive restructuring. I believe in desensitization. I think it worked for me, not for everybody. You know, again, that's why it's important that you talk to a therapist about your specific situation. Also, you know, the bottoms up approach, you know, that's something. If you have a lot of childhood trauma, especially on top of, you know, adult trauma, or, you know, a combat veteran or war veteran or something like that, and you also have childhood trauma, you know, it's probably, or neglect, it's probably pretty important that you meet with a therapist that knows how to take a bottoms up approach, which is going to, you know, really help you rebuild those brain structure and neuron pathways in your brain, and know how to do that specifically for you. And one last tip is being able to figure out how to get into an alpha brainwave state, right? If you watched my video from yesterday or the day before, you understand how important that is. You know, you know, again, I've been learning about hypnosis and meditation here for quite a while, and I really didn't realize the real impacts of it. But being able to be in that alpha brainwave state also allows you to be that very, very awake, present, and alert, however, without the danger aspect. So you're very calm and relaxed and present, and that is when you have complete control and ability to utilize your mind as well as your body for healing and for you know, growth and doing better. So definitely something you want to look into, you know, if you're interested in, check in my video. I think I did it yesterday on hypnosis and meditation and some techniques on how to do that. The Jose Silva Mind Control Method book, and there's a couple more. Anyways, I'll list them in the link below the video. So I hope this helps some people. You know, share it with some family members, you know, if you're struggling and you think it may help them understand your situation. And, you know, as always, I'm always here if you need somebody to talk to. I've been in the mental health field for about 15 years, so I'm definitely here to help or connect you with the appropriate resources that you may need in your local area. I am definitely tied in with the VA, so, you know, if you need any resources there, you know, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be glad to hook you up with some of those resources wherever you're at. So with that being said, God bless everybody and take care.